on this computer. Okay. In 10 minutes or less, ask me all the questions, Aaron.
Ask you all the questions. Okay. First of all, very glad to be here. Very glad to meet you. I had a question about kind of how you came to be where you are today. Like, how did you get in this spot? The big pieces, the little pieces, what your career trajectory has been thus far to create Mattingly Consultants or Solutions. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Mattingly Solutions. So never did I plan to be a business owner. I always wanted to be a woman in leadership. And I don't even like that term. I kind of bristle at that now. I think of more of like, what's a feminine leader? And I'm like trying to figure that out. That's another conversation for another day. But I saw myself more of like being like in a big corporation and kind of rising up in the ranks. However, I want to do good work and not have the barriers of like bureaucracy and like corporate America like tell me to slow down or wait my turn or burn me out. I literally burnt out at my final corporate job. And I always say I feel like I'm the medical doctor telling my patients not to smoke and I'm outside smoking a pack a day. I'm a who burnt out at her job when one of my biggest goals is to help people not burn out of their job. So it's just ironic. And when it was time to go back on the market, because before that, I got my PhD in organizational psychology. I want to improve the human experience at work and do it through behavior change, like broadly, and inclusion specifically. I got into the inclusion space because my dissertation was on male executive allyship to advance women in leadership efforts. So my DEI journey started in the gender space, particularly in the allyship space. Because women in leadership content, it was all this telling women what to do differently. If you look at any organizational chart, the higher you go up, the less and less women there are. If we didn't get men actively involved in gender equity efforts, like we're just dead in the water, right? And so, like, how do we engage men, not in a you're the problem way, but like, hey, help us. Glass ceiling, you're up there. Give me a little hand, give me a little ladder. And like men want to do that, for the most part, they just don't know how. But that's what started allyship, inclusive behaviors, right? And so anyway, burnt out, time to go back on the market. I've been always been told I'm entrepreneurial. I didn't know what that meant. I never started a company. I'm not business minded. I just want to do good work. But when it was time to like start looking for a job, I was like, just see if I can get like a client. Let's just experiment. I'm already like, there's no rush. I'm already not working, because I just left my job, I had no job lined up. I was just like, I'm burnt out, I'm done, like I'm existential crisis. And I got a client, and I was like, okay, I want X number of revenue by this date. I hit that, and then that was August 2019. I got the LLC. January of 2020, I'm like, I'll go all in. This is great. I'm going to get the logo and the website and get some training and learn how to be a proper business owner, entrepreneur. COVID happened. Everything changed. George Floyd was murdered. Everything changed. Biggest game changer, bringing on Sertrice Grice, my business partner. She's co-owner, chief consulting officer. She's phenomenal. And we have amazing clients, and we are solving important problems with like how to measure this stuff. Like as organizational psychologists, like I'm trained in the science of taking these abstract ideas like inclusion or job satisfaction or commitment to an organization or emotional intelligence. Like how do you measure these things? Because we know they matter, and see where gaps are to then close the gaps. And using behavior change, using the science of learning to get people to remember stuff, more importantly, like use it later and change their behavior, like that's so exciting to me. And the fact I get to do it in the inclusion space, when I love this space, like I know I started in gender, but being more intersectional. And what was fascinating part about my journey was, as a woman, I was very comfortable talking about allyship as a woman, like and as a gender aspect. Like I'm very comfortable talking about like, hey men, you're great. I used to like, I love white men. I married one. I have one and as a son. Like but like, help us. So help me, help you, help us. Like, but as a white person, when the social conversation really shifted here in America to the Black community, I was not comfortable in that space talking about allyship. And being with Certrice, who is a woman of color, she's a Black woman. I met her through Blacks in IO, Blacks in Industrial Organizational Psychology. And so that's why we share so much of our viewpoints, because we're both coming at it from an org psych perspective, which is why we wrote the book. Like, this is how you can think about it, use data to measure this and do it in a way that is more scientifically like valid, right? Because if we're not getting the right information, regardless of when we're collecting it, if we're not getting the right information, we're not solving the right problems, right? And it's funny because like we're Mattingly solutions, but all we really are is helping you figure out what the problems are, and then we'll help you figure out how to solve them. But like that's what we're doing. It's the methodology. And so, did that answer your question? I feel like that was all over the place.
It was good. I mean, to get background on you, because that's one of the questions I had was how did you go from sort of the PhD in IO to an entrepreneurial space? I do have a question about your team, but another question just popped up as you're talking about this: the collection of data and the importance of data in intersectionalities. So you started in the gender space. You've kind of not with not saying this in a bad way. You've kind of moved a little bit into the race space and kind of looked in a lot of different elements, but just the very clear, especially in this country, the intersectionality between race and gender, and how important that is, and what those outcomes look like, and how do you collect those data in a way that is meaningful for people, that they can really actually use that instead of just looking at a single variable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of answered your own question, but you just collect it, right? You like when we do our workforce surveys, we ask all those questions and we always give it out. We don't want people to feel like they're going to self-identify or they don't feel safe. And that's interesting data too, when people choose not to even share what their gender is, like something that's like so probably physically obvious. Like, why is 20% of your workforce unwilling to share their gender? Like, what's going on here? And interesting enough, we saw recently in some data we ran that those are the people with the lowest belonging score. So there's something with trust going on there, or like they don't believe in the efforts. I don't know. It's fascinating. All this is to say, we collect gender data, we collect race data, we collect caregiver data. And if we have enough data points and have enough intersections, we can say this is a unique experience of Black female mothers, like of Black mothers in this organization. And we see in these belonging scores that they have the lowest score. So we're gonna have a focus group with this group to figure out what's going on. Like it can get that nuance. Those are three intersections, right? And it's just a matter of collecting it. But it needs to be a big enough organization where you can look at those intersections because we have a hard well, it depends on the size. Sometimes it's three, no less than three. Sometimes it's no less than five, but we have a cutoff to make sure we don't accidentally identify a group because we're saying, oh, the indigenous person at this company, like clearly, if you know there's the one indigenous person at the company, we're talking about that, right? And that's the last thing we want to do. And so that's the cool thing about coming from a psychology background, like protecting our participants, like they're clients now, like, but they're participants, like they're actively engaged in some research and it's going to benefit them, but there's a fear of getting exposed. There's a fear of what is this going to mean? Am I going to be excluded now because I'm in the majority group? You know, like what does this mean? Or like I don't believe in any of this stuff. This is pushing some left wing agenda on me. It's like, no, we're just trying to serve your people. You're part of that. You're part of
So if somebody likes what you're doing though, and they want to be the next Mattingly, what does that process look like? Like if there are clinicians out there that maybe are interested in this work or doing this work, but really need to understand the data and how to incorporate the data, like what is a pathway to doing the work that you're doing?
So it's not clear right now. I see a lot of accreditation programs and certification programs and a lot of universities just saying, "Oh, we have a DEI certificate," you know, but like I don't think that's the right route right now. If you're in school, then take those classes by all means. A lot of classes are using the book, which is like super cool. I'm speaking in multiple classes about like because they're using the book. It's awesome. Don't go back to school. There's work that needs to be done right now. And if you're already in an organization and you want to do this work, start doing this work. You can start small. And that's like a big theme that I try to get through in the book. Like, have a focus group. And it could be lunch. Bring together a group of people who are willing to chat with you over lunch and have a conversation. And even say, I talked to 6 people in this group, and this is what's happening. And like we're losing people because our maternity leave is awful here. We're losing women. Top performers. Talk to 6 people. Take that to HR. Do one thing. You know what I mean? I think you can start there. And then what's fascinating, if the space keeps going the way it's going, companies can't hire people fast enough, people are getting burnt out. And so there's lots of inroads internally to end up in those roles. And then finally, DEI offload. So Dr. Sam, I forget her last name. She is amazing and she puts out so much good free content on like DEI consulting. So like just from like a content standpoint, I hope she writes a book. And then also Lily Zhang just did DEI deconstructed, and that's another great like toolkit book. But I would just say just start doing some stuff and see if you even like it. It's exhausting work. It's not easy. And the worst part is sometimes you collect the data, you get the insights, you have the solutions like in your hand, and you take it to the people who can do something about it. And they're like, no, not right now. And then that's it. And that's devastating. So
That's the old horse to
try it
water,
out.
right? That's the old horse to water. You're trying to get them there, but just whether or not. And I think that's where we also kind of struggle because there's a lot of performative actions that are happening where perhaps people are saying they want to do things and they might be putting some money behind it, but they don't really want to change the culture.
Yeah.
So I look forward to really digging into the book a little bit more to figure out if there are real ways that we can use data to change culture. And maybe not, maybe more than just inform culture, but actually really change culture because some
Yeah.
things do need to change a bit in order for people to feel like they're actually included and to actually have a diverse workforce.
Well,
And so,
and like what gets measured gets done. And so
yeah,
you need to measure things to
totally.
know if it's getting done. So anyway, I'm gonna thank you for interviewing me. That's for everyone out there who wants to know about Mattingly.